Non-selective beta blockers are a class of drugs with antagonist action against both beta-1 and beta-2 receptors. These include drugs such as propranolol and timolol. Non-selective beta blockers can be used to treat a variety of cardiac conditions such as angina, tachycardia, and heart failure. In this video, we'll go over the mechanism, clinical uses, and side effects of non-selective beta blockers so you'll be ready to nail it on test day. It's a beautiful morning here in Canada, eh? It's time for my morning coffee, and it's a good thing we're outside everyone's favorite coffee and donut shop, Tim Hortons. Come to think of it, Timo sounds a lot like timolol, right? This classic Canadian pit shop is meant to anchor you to the drug timolol. Timolol is a non-selective beta blocker used to treat a variety of cardiac conditions. Try to remember this Tim Hortons for timolol, and you'll be set for test day. Ouch, take a look at this guy dropping that heavy propane tank on his foot. Yikes, that must have hurt. It seems like this guy was lugging a propane tank into his truck after picking it up from Tim Hortons. Of course they sell propane at a convenience store like Tim Hortons. Anyway, let this propane tank remind you of the drug name propranolol. Similar to timolol, propranolol is another non-selective beta blocker. Besides propranolol and timolol, there are just two more non-selective beta blockers to keep in mind. These include nadolol and pindolol. Generally, a good way to remember this is that non-selective beta blockers tend to start with the letters N through Z. My purpose here is not to have you memorize a laundry list of 20 drug names, but rather teach you the most important names most likely to come up on test day. Those names are timolol and propranolol. Got that? Now, let's pivot over to this mischievous-looking kid in the parking lot. See that lollipop our troublemaker is sucking on? Let this lollipop remind you that we're talking about beta blockers in this video with their common lol ending, like timolol and propranolol. Keep in mind that this lol ending is universal to all beta blockers and not specific for the non-selective beta blockers we'll cover here. Alright, let's take a look at what mom's doing. Slapping that BB gun right out of her son's hands? You see, her little son got too excited with his new toy BB gun and accidentally shot his dad with the gun. No wonder why the guy dropped the propane tank on his shoes. By the way, a BB gun here is our recurring symbol for beta-1 receptors, and this mom knocking out of her troublemaker's hands should make you think of falling or blocked receptors. So, altogether, we've got beta-1 blocking, or antagonism, represented by this beta-1 BB gun being knocked to the ground. So what does beta-1 antagonism mean for drug action? Blockade of beta-1 leads to decreased heart rate, or chronotropy, as well as decreased contractility, or inotropy, which altogether lead to decreased cardiac output. Essentially, this decreases the amount of work the heart has to do and can improve a variety of heart conditions. This blockade also happens to decrease renin release from the juxtaglomerular cells in the kidney. Now, let's circle back to the propane tank. Looks like the propane is smashing into the dad's boat shoes, crushing his feet. These boat shoes are our recurring symbol for beta-2 receptors. You know, it's the beta-2 boat shoes. And these crushed or broken boat shoes should make you think of beta-2 antagonism or blockade. So what do we know about beta-2 receptors? Well, stimulating them leads to bronchodilation and vasodilation. That means that blocking them will lead to, that's right, vaso and bronchoconstriction. This vasoconstricting effect is minor and mostly outweighed by the drug's other actions. However, the bronchoconstricting effects leads to some notable side effects, such as worsening asthma or COPD. Beta-2 blockade also decreases hepatic gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis. Don't worry, we'll circle back to that later. For now, just remember these crushed boat shoes for beta-2 antagonism. Clinical uses for these meds are easy to think through now that we understand how they work. Beta-1 blockade decreases cardiac output and renin release, which can both lead to reduced blood pressure in order to treat hypertension. Decreasing the work of the heart also helps to treat angina and myocardial infarction, since decreased work means less myocardial oxygen demand. Beta-1 blockade also slows down the heart rate and conduction in the AV node, which makes these drugs useful for treating tachyarrhythmias by slowing down the heart. I wouldn't necessarily memorize this list, as you can basically infer it if you remember what the beta-1 and beta-2 receptors do. Adverse effects are also easy to understand now that we understand the action of our beta 1 and beta 2 blockade. Beta 1 blockade increases risk for heart block and bradycardia by slowing down the heart and its conduction in the AV node. But what about the beta 2 blockade? Well, beta 2 blockade can cause bronchoconstriction, worsening symptoms in patients with asthma and COPD. These drugs can also induce hypoglycemia due to decreased hepatic gluconeogenesis and glycogenolysis. Note that beta 2 blockade doesn't contribute a lot of positives, so the modern use of non-selective beta blockers, like propranolol, is less common. These days, we much prefer the selective beta blockers, like atenolol, for their better side effect profile. Okay, now we're finished. Just a quick recap and we'll be on our way. Propranolol and timolol are non-selective beta blockers with both beta 1 and beta 2 blocking activity. Blocking of beta 1 receptors reduces cardiac output by slowing down the heart rate and reducing contractility, while beta 2 blockade has minor positive effects and mainly leads to a host of side effects. These drugs are used for a variety of cardiovascular conditions, including hypertension, angina, arrhythmia, and heart failure. Common side effects as a result of beta 2 blockade are asthma and COPD exacerbation, as well as hypoglycemia. And that's all for our non-selective beta blockers. Let's get out of here and let our propane guy get to an urgent care to get that foot looked at. See you in the next one.